Chapter 9. Into the Jungle. A light-skinned boy could never make it. That thought, first suggested by Chubba, restated by Jack Hudson, kept running through Biff's head. The Chinese Reds border patrol would spot a white boy instantly. Biff remembered stories he had read of Americans captured in Red China. The stories weren't pleasant. Biff left headquarters house deep in thought. He walked slowly across the compound. Chubba was waiting for him in the palm grove. "Biff has big thoughts," was Chubba's greeting. "Maybe Chubba can help." "Maybe you can, Chubba. Maybe you just can. I've got an idea. See what you think of it." For 15 minutes Biff spoke to Chubba. At first the native boy kept shaking his head. Then, as Biff's enthusiasm mounted, Chubba was swept up by the idea. Negative shakes of the head became excited head shakes of agreement. Chubba's eyes lighted up. Now he cut in on Biff's enthusiasm with bursts of his own. He took over Biff's plan and added to it. Biff was a hard one to resist when he became enthusiastic about anything he wanted to do. And this he meant to do. "We can do it, Biff," Chubba said. There was no holding the boy now. "I get things ready on double quick. Have much ideas, but will take time." "How much time?" Biff demanded. 2 hours, maybe 3. Then you come to the house of my father. You know, where you saw Evil Spirit Box. Chubba be all ready." "Chubba, you're a really smooth operator." "Like real American boy?" "You said it." Chubba's mouth was split into a wide grin of pride. No praise could have pleased him more. Toward late afternoon, Jack Hudson ran his hand over his forehead. He was tired. He hated paperwork. All afternoon he had been poring over files, checking bills, answering letters. The work had to be done, but he wished there was someone else to do it. Action, that's what he liked, not sitting at a desk in a hot room. As cluttered as his mind was with facts and figures, the thought of his missing friend, Charles Keene, kept coming back again and again. Jack thought of Biff, too. He didn't like the idea he felt sure was building in Biff's mind. Too risky, of course. But he told himself, this sitting around, just waiting, was getting him down too. With an impatient sweep of his arm, Jack shoved the papers away from him. He stretched, got up and made for the front entrance of headquarters house. On the raised platform, 6 steps above the ground, Jack stopped to light a cigarette. As he did so, his attention was caught by a beggar boy coming at a run across the compound. The boy reached the foot of the steps and sprawled on the ground. "Baksheesh, Sahib, baksheesh," the boy wailed. Jack Hudson looked down at the boy. His feelings of disgust mingled with one of sympathy. These poor kids, he thought, trained to beg from the day they could walk. Baksheesh, the word for a tip, a present, was used in many places in the East and Far East. "Baksheesh, baksheesh," the boy continued to moan. Jack looked about him. He spotted Chubba's father. "Ti-Peo, come here. Chop, chop." Ti-Peo came on the run. He could tell Sahib Hudson was annoyed. "You know my orders, Ti-Peo. No beggars allowed in the compound. How did this boy get in?" Ti-Peo shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe slip through gate or hide in truck coming through." "Well, get him out of here. You know that twice a week we hand out food and alms to the beggars. They are not to come inside." "Baksheesh, Sahib, baksheesh," the plea came again. "Take him away, Ti-Peo." Jack Hudson turned and started to re-enter the building. As he did so, the beggar said softly, "No baksheesh, not even coke money." Jack whirled round. The beggar boy was already heading for the gate. Jack scratched his head. I could have sworn, he said. Nah, I must have been hearing things. Must be the heat, he mumbled to himself. He shook his head and went through the door. The beggar boy neared the gate, then cut to the left. He raced through the palm grove, then carefully, stealthily, made his way to the cabin of T. Peo. There was just a flash of brown ragged clothing as he slipped through the door. It worked, Biff. Chubba danced up and down in his excitement. The beggar boy grinned. It was the grin of a happy Biff Brewster. I'll say it worked. Even your father didn't recognize me. Not Sahib Hudson either? Biff shook his head. No, I fooled him completely. I even spoke some American words. Course, I said them low, just as I was leaving. Don't know whether he heard them or not. Let me take a closer look, Chubba said. Biff turned slowly around as Chubba made his inspection. It's much okays. I only afraid sweat make betel nut juice get all smeary. I was afraid of that too, Chubba, but the stain didn't run. Biff looked as much like a native boy as Chubba did. The tattered shorts and torn shirt that he wore had been dug up by the always astonishing Chubba. Biff's face, his body, his legs were stained a light yellowish brown. This had been done with the juice of betel nuts, mixed and thinned with still another liquid to lighten the blackish fluid crushed from the betel. On his feet, Biff wore floppy, torn sandals. Only one thing, Biff, your eyes should be more slanty. I fix. Chubba took out a piece of charcoal. At the outside corners of each of Biff's eyes, Chubba deftly applied upward strokes with the charcoal. He stepped back to view his handiwork. Then he went into a gale of laughter. You much China boy now. No one could tell difference. Just call me the Chop Suey Kid, Biff laughed. Chop Suey Kid? What's Chop Suey? You never heard of it? Chubba shook his head. Well, back in America, it's our favorite Chinese food. Chubba looked puzzled. He still didn't get it. He shrugged it off. Now we all set. No border guard ever spot you. Never tell you American boy. Biff had passed his test. Neither Jack Hudson nor, even more important, T. Peo had penetrated his disguise. Okay then, Chubba. We're all set. It's still an hour before the night mess call. I think we'd better be well on our way by then. I'll be missed when I don't show up for chow. And Jack Hudson will guess where I've headed. But by then, it will be too late, too dark, to start a search. What about food and other stuff? All set. Chubba has everything. Even bottle of juice in case you start turning back into white boy. We got food for 2 days. After that, Chubba get more wherever we are. All right, Chubba. Now I'm really going to let your father put me out the gate. I'll follow the river until I reach the second bend. Then I'll wait for you. All is good. Chubba be right after you. Not look good for me to leave here with lowly beggar boy. Chubba grinned, and Biff returned his smile. That night, by 9 o'clock, the two boys were deep in the swampy jungle between the Irrawaddy River and the border of China. Chapter 10. The Barrier. Night turned the Burmese jungle into a frightening enemy. Towering trees, teak, acle, ironwood, shot straight upward, so close-packed and dense that they blotted out the starlit sky. Vines, some of them as thick as a man's arm, were forever stretching low across the boys' path, as if trying to hold them back from their bold venture. What bothered Biff most of all was the sickening smell of the jungle. Rotted vegetation gave off a rank, stifling odor. Biff had been in the jungles of Brazil, but they were nothing compared to the one he and Chubba were forcing their way through. During the 2 hours they had traveled in the waning daylight, their progress had been swift. Chubba knew the trails well. Sometimes, moving at a trot several steps ahead of Biff, the native boy would seem to be swallowed by hedges of low, thick brushwood. But he would reappear, parting the thick growth so that Biff could follow. Moving swiftly, silently, without talking to conserve their breath, Biff was suddenly startled. From directly overhead came a chorus of angry screams. Biff stopped and looked up. "Only monkeys, Biff," Chubba called back. "We wake them from their sleep, and they no like. Come." Once again, Chubba took up his steady pace. Thorny bushes grabbed at Biff's already tattered clothes. Ugly scratches marked his legs. Most upsetting was the unexpected change from dry land into dank, oozing swampland. Chubba never stopped or gave any warning of what lay ahead. Time and again, the native boy plunged into a narrow stream. Once the water, muddy, almost hot, came up to Biff's waist. As he neared the opposite bank, he halted a moment to look back. "Biff, Biff, hurry! Out of the water!" Biff leapt for the bank, just as a partly submerged log moved swiftly through the water to the spot where he had been standing. As it reached the bank, the log's jaws opened, and Biff heard the chilling sound of teeth gnashing together. "Crocodile, Biff! Never stop in stream! Old Croc might be hungry." If he likes mud-flavored boy, I'm his dish, Biff thought. After traveling for 6 hours with only brief rests, the boys were bone-weary. Biff figured it must be midnight or a little after. They had reached a small clearing, a circle about 30 feet across. Towards one side, a single ironwood tree rose high above the surrounding underbrush. "We stop here for the night," Chubba said. "You ever sleep in tree?" "Once. Didn't find it very comfortable, though. Do we have to?" "It's much better. This tree has nice big limbs. Find good crotch, settle in, and sleep real good. Too many animals on the ground. Animals and insects. Big ants, geckos, even wild pigs. You know gecko is big slimy lizard. Wild pigs don't care what they eat. And ants sting real bad. Much better in tree." Chubba stood at the base of the tree. "You give me push up to first limb. Then I can give you my hand to pull you up. Come on." Biff didn't reply or move. His eyes were intent on a vine that hung down from one of the higher limbs. It seemed to sway slightly, but there was no breeze. "Back, Chubba, back!" Biff shouted. Chubba leapt backward. Biff, fascinated, watched the vine stretch downward, then slither off the branch and plunge downward. "Python!" Chubba cried out. "Yes, python. I've seen them before. Not pythons like that one, but boas. Boa constrictors of South America. They're of the same family." The boys now stood in the center of the circle. The python, nearly 20 feet long, seemed to stare at Biff and Chubba. Then it slowly slithered into the underbrush. Biff looked at Chubba. The native boy lowered his head. "Is Chubba's mistake. Always my father tell me to be sure and check sleeping tree for python. Chubba forget this time. If Biff not so alert, maybe python now be round Chubba's neck instead of deep in forest. Any chance of its coming back? If it went up that tree once, why shouldn't it come up again? And with us up there?" "Oh no, once snake scared away, it not come back. This Chubba knows. Python climb up tree to attack enemies by dropping down. Never climb up to find enemies." "Well, I just hope you're right. Come on, let's hop into our upper berths." "Upper berths?" Chubba asked. Biff explained, and the two boys climbed up the tree to their sleeping quarters. Biff watched Chubba as he nestled down on a stout limb forming a crotch with the trunk of the tree. Chubba stretched out backward, his legs on either side of the tree trunk. Biff did the same. At first the position was most uncomfortable. Biff felt he had to keep his knees tightly pressed against the tree trunk to keep from falling. Gradually, though, he squirmed into a position where his legs dangled down, each touching the trunk with just enough pressure to keep him balanced. Some bed, Biff thought. Then, his body aching from the battling his way through the jungle, Biff slept. Early in the morning, with the sun fighting to send its rays through the dense jungle, Biff was awakened by a call from just above him. Chubba was about 5 limbs higher up. "Good sleep, Biff?" Chubba called down. Before answering, Biff tested his cramped arms and legs. He was stiff all over. Sleeping in a tree might be safe, but it certainly was no featherbed. He knew, though, that after half an hour in the hot, steamy jungle, he would sweat all the stiffness out of his body. "Guess so. I slept anyway," he called up to Chubba. "Then we go down and be on our way. We should reach the border in 2 more hours." The sun had brightened the circular opening below, about the only spot where the sun's rays could get through. Biff heard Chubba scrambling down from above him. Then he looked down and gasped. There, in the center of the circle, stretched out asleep, was the most magnificent animal he had ever seen. "Hold it up there, Chubba," Biff said softly. The scrambling stopped. "Can you see down through the leaves?" Chubba's answering gasp told him that he could. The animal below, enjoying a morning snooze, was a tiger. Both boys held their breath, afraid that even the slightest sound might awaken the sleeping beast. Moments passed. Then, in a whisper, Biff asked, "What do we do now?" Chubba's answering whisper came down through the leaves. "We wait, Biff. All we can do. If we try to scare him away, he get mad, wait for us to fall out of tree and eat us." Chubba's knowledge, Biff realized, was mixed up with superstition and tales handed down from one generation to another. Tigers, Biff knew, were man-eaters only in certain circumstances. A wounded tiger would attack a man. So would one so old that it could no longer get its food easily. Then, man, less quick, less nimble than the animals tigers usually fed on, could well become the evening meal of a tiger. Biff looked down at the sleeping animal. Its sleek, glistening fur told him that this was a young tiger. Its white, furry underbelly was puffed out. That tiger had had a good meal. Biff knew. Probably caught his breakfast just before daylight, and now he was having a nice nap in the sun. "Is he still sleeping?" Chubba whispered. "Like a baby after its morning bottle," Biff whispered back. Biff didn't think the tiger would sleep too long, not as the morning sun rose higher and its fiery rays burned down on the opening. Once they hit Mr. Tiger, the animal would move off to a shady spot and complete his rest. As Biff watched the animal, the jungle suddenly came alive with the screeching, cawing, and screaming of hundreds of birds and animals. The tiger sat up quickly. It rose to its feet, its long tail twitching back and forth. Then it opened its mouth in a gaping yawn, showing glistening white teeth and fangs. It turned its head from side to side, looking to spot any danger. "That noise from the monkeys," Chubba called down, "or maybe wildcats. They chasing the parrots, all very mad at each other." "Good for them," Biff called back. "They woke up our friend down there. I think old Tiger's going to move along." Biff watched the tiger. He saw it stretch, arching its back very much like any tomcat. It slowly trotted out of the clearing into the dense undergrowth. "Tiger's gone, Chubba. We'll wait a while, then let's take off from here fast." Biff had no way of counting the passing minutes. He had left his watch back at Unhao. It would be a fatal error, he knew, if a Chinese beggar boy was spotted wearing a wristwatch. He forced himself to wait. He wanted to be sure that the tiger was long gone to another sleeping spot. The minutes went by as the sounds of the jungle grew louder and louder. Crows added their angry caws to the symphony of sounds coming from herons, silver pheasants, and other birds. "I think it's safe now, Chubba. What do you think?" Biff's answer was the sound of Chubba scrambling down from his perch. "Okay, Biff, we go." The boys climbed down, dropping the final 10 feet to the ground. Chubba opened his bundle and took from it 2 handfuls of cooked rice. They ate as they took up their trek once again, scooping up a handful of water from the first clear stream they came to. After travelling an hour, at which time the sweat was pouring off Biff's body, soaking his ragged clothes, Chubba stopped. "We're not far from the border now, Biff. Maybe another hour, maybe less, until we get there." "And where we cross, there won't be any border guards?" Biff asked. Chubba doesn't think so. Main road where guard always patrols is south of here, almost a day's walk. The path we on leads to small, narrow river. River is boundary between Burma and China. Where we cross is a small clearing. River not deep there, only up to knees. Easy to get to other side. The other side was China. The thought sent a thrilling chill through Biff's body. "We move with much quiet now," Chubba said. "Stay close together. Might be others at clearing. Not guards, but maybe Chinese bandits. They use this path too, when they fleeing Chinese soldiers." Biff and Chubba moved quickly but cautiously along the trail. Every few yards, Chubba would stop, straining to catch any unusual sound that might warn of danger ahead. At every hidden turn in the path, Chubba would crawl forward, then signal to Biff that all was clear to come ahead. "We're almost there now," Chubba whispered. "Around next bend in path, we come to clearing and the river. Go slow now, most careful." The boys seemed to move ahead by inches. They neared the final bend. On reaching it, Chubba slipped off the path, pressing his body behind a large palm tree. Biff came up behind, looking over Chubba's shoulder. They craned their necks round the tree trunk until the edge of the clearing came in sight. "Looks like it's all clear," Biff said. Chubba nodded his head. They left the protection of the tree, darting from one low bush to another. They came to the edge of the opening. All was clear in the opening on their side of the river. Then, raising their heads, they looked across the 30 feet of water separating them from China. Both drew back quickly. Two men wearing peaked, long-billed caps sat in the middle of the clearing on the opposite bank. Red stars on the front of their caps told the boys who they were. Not bandits, not others seeking a safe passage from one country to the other. These two men were members of the Border Patrol. The two ugly, snub-nosed submachine guns were further proof, if further proof was necessary. Biff shot a quick look at Chubba. For the first time, Biff saw fear, stark terror, written on the native boy's face. End of chapter 10.